After a hot 4-1 start, Wisconsin lost 4 of their last 5, and Nebraska dropping back-to-back games to Michigan State and Maryland looks just as bad. One school's dealing with a culture issue, while the other can't get past the turnovers. But even though both are tough problems to have, this week we'll find out which one's worse. So today, we'll look at how both of these teams got to 5-5. I'll give you my thoughts on both head coaches, and I'll finish off with who I think will win this week. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my post-game reactions or notes. And if you think Nebraska can win the turnover battle this week, hit the like button and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
He's hit and set. He's taking a shot downfield, wide open end zone, caught, touchdown.
2 weeks left on this season, and the latest top 25 has Ohio State at 2, Michigan at 3, Penn State at 12, and Iowa at 16. And at this point, we know for sure either Georgia or Alabama's in as long as they both win their next 2 games. The winner of Ohio State-Michigan is going to get the number 1 or 2 spot depending on who wins the SEC championship. In Florida State, Washington, and Oregon all control their own destiny. I think we end up with Georgia at 1, Michigan 2, Florida State 3, and Oregon 4, which means next year's Big Ten is going to have 2 teams that made this playoff, and Washington or Ohio State were just 1 win away. And since there won't be any more East or West, the conference as a whole is going to be a lot more fun to watch. Iowa at 16 means my preseason hot take saying that Nebraska would win a top 25 game is still on the table. And even if they lose to Illinois this week, they'll still go into week 12 in the top 25 since at least 4 teams behind them are going to lose. But what if they do lose? Illinois got Luke Altmaier back, and Iowa lost their star corner Cooper DeJean at practice today. Iowa's first place in the West right now, but if Nebraska found a way to win back-to-back weeks, they'd have the tiebreaker over Iowa, and they'd end up playing in the Big Ten championship game. I'm not saying it's going to happen or that I'm expecting it to, since Iowa and Wisconsin are both at least 3-point favorites right now, but it shows you how important both these games this week are actually going to be. There's been a bunch of coaching news already, but we're barely scratching the surface. Northwestern's so happy with David Braun as their interim that they're going to lock him in as their next head coach and hope that he can win one of these last 2 against Purdue or Illinois to get him back to a bowl game in his first season. UCLA is going to move on from Chip Kelly after he finished with 8 wins in 2021, 9 in 2022, and this year they'll probably get to 7 or 8 after their bowl game. Nebraska plays UCLA at home next season, so I'm interested to see who they can get now that they've got Big Ten money to attract a big name. Kalen DeBoer at Washington's already using this amazing season as leverage to renegotiate his $4.7 million a year deal now that the Texas A&M job opened up. And I won't be surprised if he does end up leaving for a place like A&M if they make him their number 1 target and they give him more money than Washington will. The odds are slim, but now that they're a Big Ten team, I got to keep tabs on what they have going on with their coaches. USC's in the market for a new DC, and they've got the money to get whoever they want. And if you watch their offense, you've seen that they're a Tony White caliber defense away from winning the national championship. And Nebraska's got to play them in the Coliseum next November. And just like the portal, the coaching carousel is going to be crazy come mid-December. So even though the regular season's almost done, the postseason is going to be its own circus. Last weekend, my friend Jacob took me to the Lions game at SoFi that ended up being a dramatic field goal finish, and his dad's part of the staff, so he gave me a Jahmyr Gibbs jersey so I could feel what it's like to root for a winning team. And on Friday, I'm meeting my dad in Knoxville for the Tennessee-Georgia game, and luckily, that game ends right as the Nebraska game starts, so I'll still be able to watch it and go live from my phone right after. But since I'm not going to be here Friday, I'm going to do my weekend preview and picks video tomorrow with College Football with Sam. So if you're around, I'll be live at 7 p.m. Central Thursday evening with him. Nebraska and Wisconsin have played 12 times since 2011, and they're 1-11 in those games. But the last 2 were really competitive, and both came down to the final drive. Adrian Martinez failed to get in the end zone back in 2021 to tie it up for overtime. And last year, Graham Mertz hit a deep ball in the last 30 seconds to set up a score, and they won it by 1. If you look back, Wisconsin was almost always ranked. They were the best example of stability in the Big Ten West, and even though they weren't dominant, they were still winning 9-11 every year, and Nebraska was always in a much lower place. Then last year, things took a turn, and this season, they haven't got any better. Fickell and Rule are both dealing with typical year one issues, but the issues for each coach are different. Nebraska has a major turnover and quarterback problem. Their offense runs it well and the defense is top tier, but the QBs constantly give games away. Wisconsin has a buy-in issue. Tanner Mordecai called out the team after last week's loss, and he said he'd be looking to see which players still give a shit. They haven't played like they want to win, and the team hasn't adjusted to the scheme this staff is trying to install. If you're a Wisconsin fan, Nebraska looks like the worst team in the West right now, and if you had to play anybody to build your confidence back up, this is the team to play. And as a Nebraska fan, there's an argument to be made for Purdue, but they just scored 40 plus on Minnesota. So if you want a shot to get a win against the weakest team in the division, Wisconsin's that team. Let's start off with Wisconsin's offense, led by Tanner Mordecai, who's played in 7 games, but only thrown 3 touchdowns. He put the ball in the air 45 times last week, and the week before that, they threw it 41 times against Indiana. They're a pass-first offense, and unlike Nebraska, they complete most of their throws. Mordecai's percentage is close to 65%, and even though most of their throws are short, they still find a way to keep drives alive, and they don't turn it over nearly as often as Nebraska does. They only average about 150 yards a game on the ground, and this week, there's no way they're going for over 100. The priority is going to be to pass to Will Pauling, who's got 56 grabs on the year, Skylar Bell, who has 36, and Braylon Allen, who should get more targets out of the backfield, assuming he's healthier. The good news for Nebraska is that Quentin Newsome and Malcolm Hartzog are both back to practicing this week, and with Buford back in the starting lineup, the secondary should be as good as they've been all year. Just like last week and the week before that, the defense has to play well against the pass, or Wisconsin could get in the end zone a couple times. But because they don't miss many tackles, I'm not too worried about this offense doing much more than kicking field goals and burning time off the clock, as long as they don't get lucky with good field position. For Nebraska, the question on offense is what will Chubba look like with a week practicing as a starter? And if he does go down, how is Sims going to look, and how's the play calling change with him and his quarterback? Rule made a point this week that they're going to play their game, and the staff won't simplify things just because the QBs are struggling. They got to play through the turnovers, and they got to start learning to make better decisions as passers. Wisconsin's DBs looked really bad last week, but even though Coleman, Lloyd, and Bullock have all struggled the past couple games, the QBs are going to have wide open targets. I just don't know how much I trust them to get the ball out accurately. Their defense ranks in the top 35 nationally, but it's because they've been solid against the run, holding teams to under 140 yards a game. So if Chubba does have an above average day as a passer, the offense could score 24 plus and run away with it early. If you watched the last 2 games against Northwestern and Indiana, you saw a lot of missed tackles, sloppy ones like we were used to seeing under Shenander. But Emmett Johnson, Thomas Fidone, and Billy Kemp can all capitalize off that if they can get the ball in space. And it's just another reason to expect Nebraska to be able to move the ball on a defense that's given up more than 20 points a game for the last month now. The line opened up at Wisconsin -7, but all the bets came in on Nebraska, so it's already dropped down to -4.5. And every week I talk about our sponsor, BroThrow, which is the place I go when I want to place bets because it's available in all 50 states. It doesn't require a deposit. There are no minimums or withdrawal requirements. And most importantly, you don't pay a 10% VIG since it's not a sports book. If you bet $20 on a game, you'll win $20. Now, I get paid to talk about the site, whether you sign up or not, but as a friend, I really encourage you to try it out if you're betting somewhere else, because I've used the site for just about a year now, and I've already saved $4,000 on the VIG, meaning if I would have placed every one of those bets that I've made on FanDuel or a sportsbook, I would have been paid out $4,000 less than I was on BroThrow. So if you want to bet on spreads, totals, and money lines with better odds than any site you've ever used, you can join us for free at brothrow.com/GBR to take action on this game or any others you're watching this week. I have to assume that Vegas just thinks Nebraska's turnover and QB issues are so bad that that's why they think Wisconsin could win by more than a field goal. But they haven't won at Camp Randall since Rutgers the first week of October, and it took a big day on the ground from Braylon Allen to get that one done. The only two games that Nebraska lost by more than 3 were against Colorado and Michigan, both offenses that are about 20 times better than anybody in the West, and two teams who capitalized on Nebraska's defense breaking down and who didn't play to the normal level that we've seen this season. The total set at 37, which means the final score prediction is something like 21-17 Wisconsin, but that seems like way too many points now that Nebraska's secondary is pretty much at full strength. Making a prediction for this game is so ridiculous because you can't just look at how the offense, defense, special teams, and coaches match up to see who has the edge and how this game will play out. There's one factor that's determined Nebraska's fate this season, and it's the turnovers. Against Minnesota, Colorado, and Michigan State, the turnover margin was -3. Against Maryland, it was -2, and in all 5 wins, it was -1 or better. If Nebraska turns it over 5 times this week, they'll lose the game no matter what. 4 turnovers, and they need to force at least 2 to keep it within 1 score. 3 turnovers, and they can still win with a great defense. But for me to feel confident about picking Nebraska to win, they'd need to limit themselves to just 2. For both these teams, a loss likely means they miss a bowl game. And Wisconsin sucks right now, but this is their senior day. And just like we saw with Michigan State, the seniors could come out motivated knowing that this is their last game at Camp Randall. Chubba gives the offense new life, and they get new hope that they won't give the game away, but he's still injured, and who knows if he lasts the entire game or if he can pass it well enough to win it with his arm. My gut tells me we see more of the same from Wisconsin, and the Black Shirts hold them to 10 points and look dominant once again. But my brain has watched the past few games, and I know this turnover issue likely extends to every QB in the room if it's been this bad with Harburg and Sims. Only 2 turnovers, and I think Nebraska wins 20-10 in Madison to secure a bowl game and end the 40-year losing streak at Camp Randall. But 3 turnovers or more, and I don't think the QBs have enough confidence at the end of the game to lead drives inside the red zone. Losing to Michigan State was the worst loss this year, but I'd argue this Wisconsin team is a much better matchup for Nebraska right now. So a loss to them would be rock bottom on the season, and the loss would mean there's almost no chance we see Iowa lose in Lincoln next Friday. I make my predictions with my brain and not my heart, so I'm taking Wisconsin to win 13-9, and I'm expecting at least 3 turnovers on offense to set Wisconsin up with short fields for a touchdown and at least 1 easy field goal. And I'll say it again since I get so many negative comments when I do. This Nebraska team is much better than they were in the years past. The players are way better than we saw under Frost. Tackling's improved, the attitude's better, special teams knows their assignments, and the O-line looks competent. They're a quarterback away from being an 8 or 9 win team this season. And if Chubba can somehow be that guy this week, the better overall team's going to get the win, and Rule's going to go bowling in year 1. I know Nebraska can win, and I know the defense has potential to pitch a shutout, but they need the offense to sustain drives. And based on Rule's comments this week, I don't think he's going to call a game similar to what Iowa does. He's not coaching to win right now. He's coaching to build confidence and win as an attacking team. Attacking might mean we see more turnovers, but he'll force his QBs to fight through it. Win or lose, I'm still watching, but if they can't beat Wisconsin on Saturday, I'll have a bad taste in my mouth about this season because Iowa's going to be a much tougher task. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Do you think they pass it or run it more with Chubba starting at QB? How many turnovers do you think we see on offense, and how many do you think they can afford if they want to win? And who's the most important player on defense? I'm going with Ty Robinson or Nash Hutmacher, because if they can shut down the run and get pressure on Mordecai, it's going to be a long day for the Wisconsin offense. But that's all I've got for today. So until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.